Thanks for joining us this afternoon. Appreciate you all here. Hopefully, everyone's family and friends are keeping safe. We have over here with us Amrish Rau. He's a founder I have appreciated for long, albeit from a little distance. He's one of the few, very, very few founders in the last 10, 20 years in India who has the key advantage of pattern. And that pattern comes from repeated successes across multiple organizations, right? He's also one of the few founders to have, successfully done an M&A and then led that organization in the next company as well, right? So this unique blend of experience, Amrish, and your ability to draw patterns from there, that's what we are looking to borrow here. We are looking for both macro gyan as well as some tactical steps. One of my milestones would be that at the end of this session, 30 days from now, hopefully we would have implemented one small step that we have learned from here today. And we will also keep you posted with that. With that, over to you. And then I would love to open up the session.
Sure. Hey, thank you. First of all, happy to be here. Look, always happy to share experiences. What you will find is I'm much more of a person who has learned the tricks on the road rather than necessarily learned it in the classroom. I've been blessed to have had great mentors, great leaders to work with. And that has given me phenomenal experiences, which I just bring together in my day-to-day life. Some work, some doesn't work. So happy to share that. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thanks, Amrish. I'm Nishith. I'm the founder and CEO at Locus. We started this about 5 years back, and we serve large customers like Unilever, Mondelez, Nestle, big baskets of the world in making sure their goods reach to you on time or your nearest Kirana stores, right? So, Amrish, you mentioned about learning on the road, and I think that's really true, not just for all the founders in startups, but many of the early team members in a startup, because the hard thing about hard things is that there is no patterns, right? And to one of the core things that has really increased in our day-to-day lives is the number of meetings we are having, especially post the lockdown and thing. What's a quick tip from you to get us started on how you used to do, say, meetings at the start of your career and how you're doing them at Citrus, right? Like, what is something that you definitely do and what is something you have stopped doing?
So let me give you an example. Something which I haven't stopped at all is I write down everything interesting that I get to hear. And I literally do that in every conversation, every meeting, every situation. I have to tell you that not necessarily I actually follow up and read through that again, but for whatever it is, I end up jotting it down. I'm, scribble there. I remember the points. And that for me is an extremely important thing to do. I don't know what it is, but if I jot it down, I tend to remember it a lot more. So that's something which I learned literally very early in my career. This was a funny day. This was on my first job. And I had one of my colleagues walk up to me and he said, "So, din khatam." So I said, "Yeah, day is over." And he actually read out to me, "No, you have to finish 5 things." And then he had told me, he said, "You should carry a book with you because you remember things." And a small trick, but I think it has helped me tremendously over the years. Just jot it down and just, you kind of remember it. I think.
Sorry. I was just asking, often that these things that you note down, do they lead to just tangents even outside the topic of the meeting, or are they really typically specific to the meeting?
No, I generally do take things down, which is about actions to do. What did I infer out of that conversation? What should I think about? So those are the things. So I use the word scribble, but it's not frivolous writing down. I do write down things which are important immediately. Even now, like for example, I'm talking to you. I have a book right next to me where I'm just, if I like something here, I'm going to scribble it down and just keep it for myself. So all business environments, I tend to do that. The second thing which I feel extremely important both within the company and outside the company also is very rarely I tend to have conversations with somebody which I don't end up knowing the person personally. And for whatever it takes, right? Because of that, I never end up being in awe of anybody that, somebody is, super smart or somebody is much better. I generally tend to, have conversations. And in today's time, that's become extremely important. But conversations and small talks related to how's the city, how's the family, how's the extended family, people might turn around and say, yeah, the same thing is being discussed. But it's not about that, right? It's about getting to know the person, how the person behaves, what drives an individual. uh, that's something which I'd always been doing. I continue to do that today, but I continue to do a lot more of that, especially through this COVID period. And I think it has helped me very well. The last piece what I will say where I have changed is what you guys do, Nishit, and you said it very very well. You can run your business by gut, you can run your business by intuition, but to know if there are 500 trucks moving
Yeah.
all across the country with 500 SKUs out there, how are you going to plan this? You need to have the data, you need to be able to analyze that information, take smart decisions. I think that's somewhere where I have changed over the years. I used to be a lot more of gut decisioning, but today I think it just comes down to data and the power of data. And look, I know what you guys do, extremely powerful.
No, thank you. I think your words have a very subliminal effect. I noticed I just very subconsciously picked up my pen, right? Uh, on that point of intuition versus data and decision making, right? Like that, this is something we also often discuss at Locus. You joined, after like such a stellar record, you joined PineLabs right at the start of a major global pandemic, right? Uh, Great leader, great organizations, but just a very, very uncertain macro environment, which basically means that you must have had really high conviction about this organization and the impact you can bring, which obviously, we can clearly see 15, 18 months down. But take us back like 15 months back, and if you can run us through the doubts, the questions, and what was the decision making process, what was the key dimensions that you picked up while making this change?
It's a lot easier for me because my thinking process has not changed for the last 20 years. And if there's a young individual out there looking to figure out what career should be all about, one of the things which I realized 20 years back, that cash is going to go digital and cash is going to go out of fashion and digital
Hmm.
payments is going to accelerate. I realized that 20 years back. And literally every day of my life, I have done nothing else but be fascinated by seeing a once in a lifetime change wherein money is moving from paper to electrons moving in the air. uh, and hence, any business that I have been involved in, the underline has been simple, which is move away from paper based cash to digital payments. I literally don't know anything else besides that, and that's all which I have been focused on. So 15 months back, same situation right in front of me. The way I look at it is the small merchant, the small kirana store owner, that person has completely changed. What we used to know as the kirana store owner from 20 years back, where the person used to keep the chopdi and keep everything written down in the chopdi, incidentally, that person retired. I don't know if you're aware of this, but that guy retired. And
Yeah.
now what has happened is his next generation has taken over. And the
Yes.
next generation is saying, जो लाला ने छोड़ा मैं मेरे बच्चे लोगों के लिए नहीं छोड़ूंगा. I'm
Correct.
going to lead my life in a slightly different way. I'm going to create my store in a different environment. I'm going to give a differentiated experience to my consumers. I'm going to use data. I'm going to use technology. Going to use fintechs, retail tech. And I think there's a big boom coming along when it comes to digitization. All the story around, everything is moving online. Yeah, sure. But you'll be surprised that online transactions in the US is still just 20%. In
Yeah.
India, it'll be still less than 5% for
5%.
what happens in the offline world. I think the bigger opportunity for the next 10 years time is really going to be able to digitize these small merchants and allow them to run their businesses different. As I said, for 20 years, I've been following this trend. 15 months back, I was just reiterating to myself. So that's one part. The second part, which is important, is um, I had the seller's remorse. So when I sold my business, Citrus, about 3-4 years back,
Yeah.
um, and we had a great deal, great exit. But clearly, I just feel that I gave away a massive platform, and I felt that I needed a platform. The folks at Sequoia have been super kind with me all through my life. They again came back and said, "Look, I know you want a platform. You don't necessarily want to do another startup. We'll give you a platform. Treat it as your platform. Build it from there." And PineLab was just a beautiful company, a beautiful platform to build on top of that. So it just was a easy decision for me to make.
No, absolutely. And that's also covers one additional question of mine about, how did you feel during the Citrus Pay acquisition, right? And I think you truly speak of a founder's blood when you mention a seller's remorse there.
See, I actually think that, see, यही problem है. Problem क्या है? And I don't know about you, how you were brought up, right? I was brought up as a classic middle class. Both my parents were bankers, public sector bankers. When you do your first startup, and having, I'm elder to you, so having lived through a certain generation, you get to a point and you feel that exit is good. As soon as you do the exit, you realize exit is a mistake. But
Yeah.
you've got to go through it one to realize that the exit is a mistake. But the good thing right now is there are some amazing founders which are coming along. And these founders have massive dreams. And they have the first time founders and they have massive dreams. So they are not ready to sell short. They are not ready to sell their dreams too early. They want to do it for a really long time. And I think that's really good for the ecosystem. If you see the kind of startups which are going to come up in India over the next 4-5 years' time, this is going to be mind boggling. The scale at which they will operate is just going to be stunning.
Well, I hope we become one of them, right?
How would you think of it? Yeah? Let me ask you
So
this question. How would
no,
you think about the situation?
so much like you, I also come from a very middle class background. My parents were doctors. My dad refused to ever get into private practice because he's like, I should not be paid by the person I'm treating. That can corrupt my judgment. So I come from that kind of a background. Money and business was almost like a taboo word. It was all about academics and status. So definitely, an exit and money is tempting. But fortunately for us, like when we were starting, this was about 2015-16. There was an e-commerce boom. All software engineers were spoiled for options. So it was more of a mathematical risk. And we started with a very giant ambition of building a digital chief supply chain officer. And we were when we were closing our last round of funding, and that was like still Series B, we still openly told our investors that I don't think we have product market fit, because eventually the product we want to build should sell a single instance for 10 to 20 million dollars, right? So yeah, like over here we think that we are on a 10-year journey to build just a massive differentiated product and not just solve for visibility but decision making in logistics. So that's how we think over here, right? Just one last question for the session before we take a small break for a poll. You mentioned, Pine Labs being just a very beautiful company and platform, right? How do you define beautiful here? Because that's what we're going to segue into our next section, where we specifically talk about building a great product and brand. But this has been a question I also constantly ponder at Locus, that is a beautiful product different from a beautiful company? And if so, how, and what are the various dimensions of it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. A beautiful product and beautiful companies are two completely different things, right? So a beautiful product is something where you have a product which really solves for a business problem. You have a product where monetization happens very easily, When monetization is happening very easily, that means people are ready to pay for your services very easily. You have distribution which is unparalleled across the market. That to a great extent is a beautiful product with beautiful distribution capabilities. However, a company is something completely different. A company consists of many different stakeholders, and the most important stakeholder in that is who you work with. Actually, it's not about just the employees, right? It's just who you work with. um, I think that's an area in which I think there's a lot more required to be done by everybody around us, right? So uh, again, it just goes back to this old days when they used to say about, Rusi Modi, who used to be the legendary CEO of Tata Steel. And they used to say that when he used to walk the shop floor of Tata Steel, he used to know every person on the shop floor's name because he's worked with them for so long. Now, what that is empathy towards your team, empathy towards your, guys who are with you on the bus going in a certain direction. I think it's extremely critical that the company needs to view the team members in a way that the team members are the most important parts of what you create. And the team members doesn't have to be only the top 5, 10, 15. Everybody from the person who is opening the door to someone who is just helping talk to your customers, address their problems. All of those people are extremely critical in your journey. So that's one piece, which is what is your empathy in the company towards everybody who works with you, and then what you do to make it special. Like, I have to tell you this, that we've not talked about it quite a bit, but let me give you this one example, right? So we unfortunately lost one individual to COVID, and as soon as we lost one individual to COVID, what we did was we decided to give 10 lakh rupees in addition to whatever the insurance. We decided to give 10 lakhs to his family. And then you sit there and you wonder, saying that what is the use of this 10 lakhs for a person who's passed away?
Yep.
What we then did was we turned around and said that if there is anybody who requires money, we will give you money. No questions asked in these days. Yep. So we've actually had 14 or 15 employees right now, where out of which 4 of them had actually reached the hospital, needed money in the hospital. Within 45 minutes, we've had money reach the person. Yeah. The idea to it is, and look, I have been in 20s, and in 20s, we've all had a situation which say life is going to be so long that I don't really need to, save money for anything. It's all going to be good. And we don't end up having even 100,000 in our bank account, right? It happens to all of us. And then COVID strikes. So at that point of time, who's there to stand next to you? And the company that you work for, if they can stand, I think that's wonderful. So beautiful company really depends on what's the empathy that the company has for their employees. And then, of course, there is customers, and then there are investors, and then there are shareholders, and all of that which comes in. So I think it comes down to how you treat your team members. And that's the most important thing.
Very interesting. Like, multiple points. Like, one, that how you buckle monetization and distribution with the product and not with the company. And company actually, was more about like various stakeholders, with very clearly the team being one, right? Geet, my co-founder, and I, we both come from Amazon, which is about EMC Cube, Earth's most customer-centric company. And both of us realized that, while working at Amazon, the customers of the teams were happiest where the teams were happy, right? So in Locus also, we went with as a stakeholder philosophy of team, customers, investors, and media, right? Because we're a B2B, so we went with investors over media. So every time, that's how we would prioritize the meetings over here, right?
That's right. Hang on. You made a great point. I was just writing that.
No, yeah. So basically, we were very clear that it's going to be between the first and second, team and investors, and between a team and customers, and the third and fourth, investors and media. Because of our experience in Amazon, we went with team and then customers, picking up the Marriott philosophy of taking care of associates who will in turn take care of guests. And, because of B2B over B2C, we just went with investors over media. what are like a couple of tactical things, right? Like these are great points, because we also did something similar. Like we increased the salary advances to 6 months from 3 months during these times and all. But in general, what were a couple of your learnings that you did at PineLabs, which you picked up from First Data and Citrus around, just tactically having more empathy for the team, and very precise, and particularly so not the top 5-10, but the team and mass, right? Because that's what really building your rocket ship.
So I think, see, you got to remember one thing, right? There is no employee out there who wants to be mothered in their office. They don't want to be treated as a kid in the office. So one of the things which I can't get my head around is, fun Fridays. Like, what do you mean by fun Fridays, right? There is no concept called fun Fridays. Like, if there is fun, there is fun. If there's Friday, there is Friday, right? So, and look, my HR tends to struggle with me on all of these views of mine, right? So hence, I'm not one of the easy participants for, a fun Fridays or a Rangoli contest. I'm not one of those easy participants. But what I rather do is things which I personally feel which adds value. Like in a First Data days, and First Data was a global company. We made an acquisition of ICICI Bank, and ICICI Bank in those days used to be Saturday working. And as soon as we made the acquisition, everybody was of the opinion, they were saying, hey, look, you know what? These guys who have joined from ICICI Bank, they should continue to work on a Saturday. We are a MNC. We don't need to work on a Saturday. We've acquired them. But those guys, if you change their policies, then what will happen is they will get, relaxed. So don't change their policy. The first thing I did was I made Saturday off.
Yeah.
And the Saturday has to be off. Because I said, if I'm chilling out, I need the team also to be chilling out. And equally, if I'm working on a Saturday because of my responsibility, they need to see the same, and then they need to work on a Saturday because they see their own responsibility associated with it. That one single thing had one of the most impact on the organization. And these kind of actions actually show something to everybody around, saying that, that there is a heart and we want to do something in a certain way. So that was something which I did. So what has stayed from the First Data days to now, do what just seems to be a logical thing to do, and then don't worry. I mean, I keep telling this another thing to everybody. I'm in a very lucky world where I get to make decisions and then execute to the decision and not have to worry and take opinions from 5 guys saying, karu ki nahi karu.
Yeah.
I've been very lucky to have made those decisions. And then I think that is the one thing which I've tried to stay with, which says, do things as you would do on a cricket field. Do things that you would do with the friends when you're hanging out with friends. And that tends to stick the most. Like I go for every fun Fridays, nobody will notice me. But I just do something which I feel like doing. I think that just gets noticed very well. So that's been a philosophy which I've maintained for a team of 5 people, 10 people. And also now we have a 3,000 people organization. We maintain the same philosophy even now.
Like I remember like one time when I was debating about first principles versus historical things, somebody mentioned to me much along the same lines that we live in this unique and privileged times where we get paid to think. Don't lose that privilege.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And what you said is absolutely correct. See, one of the things which is happening in the corporate world is, in the corporate world, you're actually being allowed to think on your own only 20% of the time. 80% of the time, you're not being asked to think. At least in the startup world, and also in some corporates which give you the freedom to operate across multi-markets, they expect you to think 80% of the time and 100% of the time. And that's a very, you're really privileged if you're living in an environment where you're allowed to think, express, and then execute.
Yeah. I want to double click on the point of nobody wants to be mothered. This is really a relevant topic right now. There was recently a popular blog post by David and Jason Fried from Basecamp guys about ending paternalistic benefits, right? Priyanka, do you want to bring up a poll for all the audience we have? Also, everyone, thanks again for joining us. We would be opening up the session for Q&A towards the second half, right? As we close on a deeper dive on the culture building and brand building at any organization. Yeah. So with that, I think you should have a poll over with you on the right. We would love to understand, why do you want to work in a startup or start a startup? What is that really excites you? And second is that, what motivated you to join us today? Let's hire great people who never need any motivation, right? Like our job is to provide them a conducive and productive work environment, and that's the end of it. But do you think in this debate, there is a big dimension of if a majority of your team is between 20 to 30 or between say 30 plus, right? Like something which we say would be true at base camp, right? Like an average age of 30, 35 versus sometimes like at least or in certain departments of your organization, an average age of 25. And would things like, social Fridays, better expense for things like that, would that matter between these two different age group, or could we go for a like consistent one?
See, I think you've been using Basecamp, and they've been in the news recently for for some
Just
other.
yeah, just as a topical example, right? But like I've
Yeah,
had
no,
this
no, I know, I
conversation
know.
at least in private with a bunch of founders that should we have an opinion on what they are doing?
Yeah, yeah. So look, I'm a firm believer. I'm a firm believer um, that it is extremely important for the founders, and the core members of the team to have a certain culture and a certain belief system, and then use that to percolate that across the organization. And then you should not be necessarily governed by what others have to say. But if you believe that you have created a good culture, then what others say will almost become as a way to improve your organization, rather than being harsh with what you do and how you think about it. And if it is all a very constructive, moving in the right direction kind of a feedback, then what happens is you all will take it very easily, and then you will grow, you will move the company in that direction. And then it should not be dependent on gender, age, location, nothing. It should then all remain the same, and it should be all headed in the same direction. So there is a common language which people understand around the world, and you need to find that and around genders, around age groups, there is that common language. As long as you can talk that common language, people will follow you. I'll tell you another very interesting thing which I have followed all through my career. In the classic management books, what they have said is that when two people are talking, talk in a language such that the other person will understand. We've all read this, we've all understood this. But I have always struggled with that idea. And the way I have struggled with this idea is that, boss, if you understand Hindi, but I am most comfortable to talk in English, I should talk in English. If you at least understand English, then I'm saying I should still talk in English. I should not struggle to talk to you in Hindi and mess this whole thing up, right? So I'm a big believer of it, is that if you're talking with honesty and empathy, then you should talk in your own voice, and people will understand what you're really trying to do. Now, of course, there are going to be arrogant people, and then there are going to be people who are going to be very difficult for others to understand. But if you believe that you have true empathy, then I really feel that you should talk with your same voice. And that holds even for a company. The company should always talk with its own voice. And once it talks with the own voice, and that voice is a common one across gender, location, age, then people will understand it easily.
No, I agree. I agree. Like last New Year's, we were faced with this dilemma of like Locus does not have like many policies. For example, a holiday policy or an expense policy. If you apply for it, it's through. We
Great.
we trust you as adults. So during the last New Year's, this was a big debate that, should we declare a 7 day off, right? And especially so because it just needed 2 working days off to make it a 7 days off. And it would have been a great optics move and all. And we just finally decided to not do it, right? Like we wrote a mail explaining why we're not doing it. And if you want a break, please go ahead and take it. But yeah, let us not get into the, area of deciding for you. And to your point, like I think people understood, and everybody just appreciated an honest voice, like a
And
consistent voice.
to be fair, this is what I mean by that people don't want to be mothered, right? People
Yeah,
just want to be treated as individuals and allowed to make their own decision. And that's fine. And that's honestly one of the best things that you can do.
right. So continuing this conversation on the culture piece, when we talk about a brand of an organization, right? Like, is the brand of a product one different from the brand of the organization? Second, is the brand primarily a function of marketing and distribution, or is it primarily a function of internal culture, or both?
This is a great question. Let me address the first question, right? The
Sure.
greatest companies have been able to put the brand of the company and the brand of the product together. However, that's one of the toughest jobs. In fact, if you ask me, that is something which I have struggled the most in my career, which is what is the brand of the company and what is the brand of the product, and how can that be under the same philosophy? I've struggled it. One of the companies which I have seen who have done this extremely well over the last few years is Cred. And Cred, if you look at it, at all points of time, the brand of Cred seems exactly the same. And it might be the founder talk, it might be the product, it might be the app, it's who they hire, how they hire, everything seems to be the same. And there you suddenly feel that all of this has come together where the company and the product have almost the same brand available. Very few companies are able to do that. But if a company can do it, I think that's the company which is the one to watch out for, and it can go to many different places. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
The second part of the question was that yes, if they are connected, then what are the dimensions towards building a brand, right? Like culture, product, anything else? Yeah, what all
I think
comes into?
I look. I think the dimensions don't end, right? The dimension just keeps on going in various different areas. So I'll give you one example which I'm
Yeah,
working through right now. So we are looking to hire what we are calling as regional GMs, and that regional GM, according to me, is really a stairway to a CEO's position in the next 10 years. That's the way I see this. And then while we have our HR teams which have defined the job description, I actually said, look, I want to tweet it out. I want to put it on LinkedIn. Can you give me 5 things to write out there which says this is the person that we are looking for? And there, one of the things which I wanted to put out there was we believe in the Ranchi ka Raja over Indiranagar ka Gunda, just as a story, right? And what I'm trying to say out here is I rather believe in the person who's going to hit a sixer rather than person who's going to take 6 singles. So I want to communicate that. But correctly, what my team actually came back and said, no, Amrish, you're wrong, because this is not how you are building PineLabs on the other side. PineLabs is not seen as Ranchi Ka Raja. PineLabs is
yeah,
seen as a sturdy, strong, high data integrity, software first company. PineLabs might actually be a Rahul Dravid. So it it has many dimensions in which the voice has to look the same, and almost there is a need for somebody to guard it at all times. And I have to tell you, it's a very difficult job across product, technology, sales, even finance. How do you put it together? We had a new guy who had joined us in the leadership team just about a week back, and he made a very interesting comment. He just dropped out an email to everybody. On that email, he put in the tagline which says client first. And in 12 months, 14 months time, nobody had spoken to me the word client first or merchant first. We
yeah.
talk about it here and there, but this guy said, I'm going to put it in every email of mine. And if you guys want to follow, you can do it too. And I said, it's such an important thing to do. Sometimes we forget the power of branding. Uh, so it's a very difficult art, but the dimensions are many, and that's why it's extremely difficult.
Like, to your customers, has the brand of the company mattered outside the marketing and distribution efforts? Like, what were the efforts, say, like on all of the other areas that you put in, where in any anecdote it mattered to a customer, or did it matter?
So it depends when you're a B2B only or a B2C.
Sure.
Like for example, and look, I'm just giving a sneak peek into what I'm doing, right? So we will be launching an online product soon. Now, in that online product, if I go out there and say, hey, G, we are going to have the best checkout experience, people are going to say, are you trying to copy somebody else about the checkout experience? But what we are actually going to communicate is that around the world, internet companies have seen their data being compromised. Consumers are looking at their data privacy in a completely different way. We as PineLabs have protected that in the offline world for the longest possible time. If these are things which are important to you, come to PineLabs in the online world. Now that's a lot more associated with who I am. And although it's a B2B product, but I can very well take the other approach to it, also saying that we've got the best UX associated to our checkout. And I know it'll fly. And I know it'll fly. But how I position my company is extremely important for me because it has to match with the philosophy of the company. So even as a B2B company, there is a need to brand ourselves appropriately.
Right. I think I can go on talking infinitely to you about.
You should. I've learned.
No, I can, because this is just because, see, this is just fascinating, and these are also mistakes which take long time to correct, right? So that's where going back to where we started that with you, we have the advantage of having that pattern and seeing it over multiple organizations. I'm going to switch gears now, and we're going to move to some of the, we have been receiving bunch of questions from the everyone who's been gracious enough to attend this. We're going to pick them up, but before that, let me take a couple of minutes of segue and change the tone to a slightly more casual one, and ask you a bunch of quick, slightly personal questions.
Sure.
But yeah, right. So just give us your snap answers. Like, don't ponder over it and think. What is one of the tech product launches you remember from last decade in India?
Mine or external?
Anyone. Just a
God.
great tech product that was launched over the last decade that you're personally proud of.
I think Zerodha is a good product.
Great answer. Yeah, absolutely. What would be the past year like in one word for you?
Illusion. And I'll tell you what I mean by illusion, right?
Interesting.
I think we've been lulled into this story saying that there's going to be a wave which will go up and comes down. Look, I've been saying this for a long time. These are going to be our toughest days because we suddenly are now so tired. We want to get out of this one, and I do think that we're going to have another 3 months of really difficult times in the country. So it's just an illusion that things will go away, things will improve. It just hasn't.
Very interesting. While doing angel investing or looking at startups, what is one individual quality you look at the founder?
One individual, I look for vulnerability. So if the founder is vulnerable, of course, and then there are many other things, right? But I like a founder who's vulnerable. So in fact, the founder that I enjoy the most in my angel investment is one of those who's not doing extremely well. But I just enjoy my time talking to this person. I like the hustle that he has. I like the fact that the guy keeps failing on various things, but his hustle, his vulnerability, his excitement to get things right, I just find it extremely infectious. And I personally enjoy that. So I don't actually run away from founders who don't have all the answers. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, as Ben Horowitz said, the hard thing about hard things is that there is no pattern.
Correct. Exactly.
Right. Which is one book you're reading right now?
I have to say I couldn't complete Sapiens the first time, so I'm just trying to complete it right now.
And is there a person you follow religiously on social media while everyone's telling us to be off social media?
Is there anybody who I follow on social media? Actually not. Actually not. So two or three things. I don't follow Bollywood. I don't follow religion. I don't follow politics. Um, and then, as I've told you, then everybody seems to be like, a normal person. So
Yeah.
I there's nobody specific that I really follow there.
What do you do for a midweek break if you ever take one?
What
Like
do
those for a
I'm
midweek break, right? Like that's 2-3 extra hours you get. Like
I'm
what do you do to
completely
chill?
into sport. I'm completely into sport. So if
Ah,
I get
nice.
any time to play any sport, I'm ready to run off and then play the sport. So right now, my in recent time favorites is squash, but I'm terrible at the game. But over the years, I played cricket, tennis, billiards, snooker, played many sport. So anything for a game for me to do.
Sure. Awesome. Let's quickly move to some of the questions from there. Uh, so in real, when are exits good? Like what is a marker to know that it's a good time to exit or not? If there is, yeah, if you could crystallize that.
Never. If you have if you have got yourself a decent secondary at some point of time, the answer should be never.
Never.
You live your life only once. You get to do things which is yours only a few times, and hence, I really don't think so. There is ever a good time to exit. It's a special thing to have built a company, built a team, built a culture. It's not that you get to do that again and again. I think that's the mistake which people make, right? People may think that exits is about the money that you get. Exit means you have to exit your dreams, exit your team, exit your people, exit your ambitions. And I just don't. I'm not ready to say that exits are good ever.
I think that's a great answer, judging by the audience response as well. Moving on to the next, how and in future years, and also if it's already happening at your organization, is the value of degrees going down? Like, are you hiring people without college degrees but great relevant experience proven by JIT or their repositories or other online courses? And
I
do you
mean,
think, yeah,
look, I'm a little bit yes and no on that answer, right? So when it comes to the first few years, I do think degrees are extremely important because there is really no benchmark by which you can actually understand somebody's perseverance, abilities to accept wins and losses, understand their technical skills. I think degrees do provide some insight into that individual. But then after the first 2 3 years time, then it only is about what you've done, where you've come from. Look, I have to tell you this, that I didn't go to IIT, I didn't go to an IIM, so I should really be the first one to turn around and say his degrees don't matter. But I'm not convinced with it. Like, I'll give you one statement, and I don't know if I'm trying to embarrass many of you and many of the people on this chat here, but I literally haven't seen a bad IITian in my life. There is always something in that IITian which I find brilliant. And of course, the guy might not be the best coder, he might not be the best marketeer, but he could be a best runner. He could be the best conversational person. He could just be a data-minded individual. There's something about an IITian which I tend to like. So I think there is value of the hard work that people put in. Um, and it's not about an IITian only, right? So please don't get me wrong. It can be an somebody from an REC, or somebody could be an Ivy League or somewhere there. I think there's definitely value of education. But then after your first two jobs, it really comes down to what you have done, what have you learned, how have you implemented it, and then it doesn't matter. In fact, one of my best angel investments, and I don't want to embarrass the person by talking about it, is the person is a 12th standard pass, and he's my best angel investment. He's just a 12th standard pass, but one of the most brilliant guys in terms of understanding fintechs. Super smart. I'm an angel investor in Cred. Kunal, for example, has done BA. The time when he was growing up, BA wasn't like the hot thing to do. But he's a super smart guy, right? He's a very intelligent guy. So, I look, I have to say that after the first 1 or 2 years is really the experiences that you have gone through and how you apply the experiences.
That makes a lot of sense. What are some early indicators that your team or your product is going to make it big eventually, right?
Oh,
Like,
that's a great question, and I have a ready-made answer for that. Consumer complaints. Consumer complaints is the greatest indication if you're going to make it big or you're not going to make it big. If you don't get any consumer complaint, you're messed up. You have to have consumer grief, consumers writing to you, consumers being unhappy with you. And the minute the consumer is unhappy with you, you can say you found your product market fit, because there is pain. They want you to improve. They want you to solve for something. The worst thing which can happen is you come up with a product and nobody is like even bothered with that product. That's the worst thing which can happen. So I keep looking at what I get to hear from our merchant base. And of course, you'll always have this idiot who's ready to say, rubbish app, delete it. You don't have to worry about it. But you'll get consumers to tell you, right, dude, this screen doesn't work, it crashes here. Now that that means there is a requirement in the market. Consumers want you to improve, and then you've got to respond quickly.
When you started that answer and mentioned consumer complaints, that was not at all where I was thinking it would end, right? And I'm glad it ended there. One of the things we often say at Locus is that sometimes our customer success team is more than just a team. They're actually our hot patch, right?
Right.
Like we build code which is on the edge of what's possible. It does occasionally have day zero bugs, and they are the ones who actually step in. And you're absolutely right. I mean, the customers who have grown with us the most, I think, are the ones who have complained the most in their early days, right? And be very particular.
And this is exactly what Bezos talks about, right? Which says, I'm going to be fanatical about the consumer. He's not saying that I don't expect the consumers to complain. His apps are not very attractive. His websites are not very attractive, but his customer service is phenomenal, which is really just listening to the consumer and then improving and improving and improving.
No, Amrish, with that, our business is to deliver on time. I would like to deliver this session also on time. And with that, would love to, wind this up. Thank you so much for a couple of things. One, just a spectrum of advice, right? Right from something tactical on how to conduct better meetings by, jotting down points, to something as macro as, think about your entire benefits and culture just on a first principles basis, right? Second, thank you for being honest in, giving slight contra or just your honest views. It would have been very easy for you to give popular answers, but I really appreciated your answers over the degree, over the importance of culture, the maternity pieces, right? And I would love to just wind this up with looking at the answers to that poll. So thank you again for doing this. We would be sharing with you and all the audience today, over the next 24-48 hours, a copy of sketch notes from today's session. So just that we have our takeaways. Thank you so much for doing it.
Thanks for calling me. Good chatting with you.
Thanks, Amrish. Have a good day. Thanks everyone for joining in. That's it from this session. See you again.